Okay.
All right, welcome world to another episode of Yatta Debates. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been like back-to-back episodes that I've been recording, so I'm kind of losing count. I'll go back in and do all of that. But today I have joining me is Charlie Kennedy. And this will actually be our first formal conversation because I had actually just hopped into that live because I had previously done an episode featuring KC, and I was just like, I have to tune into this and see what this is about. So. But for my viewers, Charlie, can you please give like not even just for the viewers, for myself too, can you give me like a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, my name is Charlie Kennedy. I am a Massachusetts native. I currently reside in New Jersey as of like a week ago, and like super sudden or recent, I should say. And home is Los Angeles to me. I care about people, and that is my passion is people. My sisters always tease me. I used to do pageantry, and they always mock me, and they're like, world peace. But like in a perfect world, it sounds super cliche, but in a perfect world, world peace would exist. It would be a thing, and we would all be marching toward that. So that's a tiny bit about me. My degree is from Bethune Cookman University. It's a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications with an emphasis in broadcasting.
Sounds interesting. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
You've been moving around a lot these past couple of weeks, huh?
Yes, I've been. That's me. Prior to the pandemic, I was a flight attendant, so I'm just furloughed until further notice. So I am all about moving around. I like to be on the move. Yeah, all the time.
And I saw that you were recently hiking in like a trail in New York too. I've been watching you.
Yeah, I went to Bear Mountain. It was awesome. I didn't even know New York like had trails at all. To be honest, I kind of was just like, you're either in the city or it doesn't count. But Bear Mountain was beautiful. It was so breathtaking and so relaxing. I highly recommend it.
Seriously, and people have like that stigma with New York and New Jersey that's like all city, but then like I went hiking for like the first time last year. I was like, oh shit, like this is in New Jersey, like.
Right? Wait, where did you go hiking?
I can't even pronounce it, but it's like Muscaton Chong, something like that. It's
sure.
Like,
is that in New Jersey or New York?
No, that's actually in New Jersey.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's closer to Frenchtown, I believe. It's like around that area.
I don't even know where that is yet, but I'm gonna get out a map at some point and I will find it.
Gotcha. So to get to our topic, for the reason why I brought you here is tuning into that live. I didn't know really what to expect, and I guess it was like an issue with the issue that I guess black men have with like black women or something like that, or regarding a post that was made, and I wanted to go in there, and I was just like, oh, like, well, what's going on? It seemed like it was like a healthy conversation in the beginning. It was like things just getting like like a little crazy.
Yeah.
But so with that, in regards to that stance, let me ask you this: do you think that the issue with relationships between the black community, do you think that is an issue that is disproportionate to us, or is this just something that like it's blown out of proportion because like we know for a fact that other races go through it, but is this something that disproportionately affects us?
Absolutely. I think it's something that disproportionately affects us because now a lot of people know. I don't think that years ago people knew. I didn't find out until college the true meaning behind the 13th Amendment. But thanks to Netflix, I think most people now have an idea of what the 13th Amendment is about.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't familiar, it's essentially legalizing slavery in the form of the prison systems. And so that in and of itself was removing the black man from black households. And so that was disproportionate to us. And unfortunately, there really isn't a way to take something that's so historic, that's still happening present day, that's still actively impacting our communities, and just it goes away because we have our first black president, or it's dissolved because racism is no longer socially acceptable. Those things are still happening, hence the Black Lives Matter movement, hence the protests that have been going on during the pandemic. So it's disproportionate because of that part of the history. And then I think the other side of it that's disproportionate is that black men, not all, but oftentimes black men are the only group of people who publicly disown or chastise or separate themselves from the group of women that they are traditionally expected to mate with. A lot of times it's the people that reflect who's raised them, their mothers, their aunts, their grandmothers. So I think that's why it's disproportionate. I don't think that these issues are, are specific to Blacks. I don't think that it's like only Black people, but I've honestly never seen, I'm only one person, so I can't speak for the entirety of the world or the entirety of what's happening on the interweb. But from what I've seen, I've never seen any of my friends or colleagues or whomever from any other race or group of people speak negatively about people in that group because they're of the opposite gender and label them as angry or bitter or what have you.
As a whole, right? Like as a collective.
Right. Just generalizing. I've seen people be like, my ex did this, but they're very clear and they're being very specific and intentional in saying my ex or my mom did this or my whoever. So when I see what I saw, which was a Black man saying, oh, Black women, why are you guys, bitter and angry? And, I'm being forced to increase my interest in another race. It's like, no, you probably had an experience with one or maybe a handful or maybe several women, but even 100 doesn't begin to chip away at the population of who's available to you. So it's just kind of nonsense.
Well, with that, like, I think with anything, back to what you were saying, I think like your experiences kind of like shape your perspective. And I remember like you were saying, like, you can't necessarily like speak for the community. Like now me and Casey do come from like the same community. And like I'll tell you, it really is like sometimes like we'll get caught in a position where like we might feel like we're doing the right thing. And sometimes it might feel like that it's not enough. And to kind of like even play on what he was talking about more, I think now more than ever with everything that's going on with the tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, Ahmaud Arbery, I think what he was trying to get at is that like in this point in time that we as Black people as a whole will have more compassion for each other, especially with us having like these open dialogues about normalizing going to therapy, finding healthy outlets that even like for men and women, for men to women and women to men, that we as a whole would have more compassion from that. And I just think that like sometimes we don't see that on both ends of the spectrum. It was one thing that I kind of made a post on Facebook. I know like we might not follow each other, but I told somebody, I said, we went from kings and queens and brothers to sisters back to niggas and bitches real quick. And it's like, it's really disheartening. You know what I mean? Like, especially with everything going on. So like
I think it's, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that it's extremely disheartening, but I also think that what it comes down to is like, there are some words that for some people are not complimentary words. And for some people, they're like, oh, that's a term of endearment. So my friends don't refer to me as the B word, as the N word, because those are not words that I accept. Those are not words that I use. I don't talk to my friends like that. So I don't accept that. So people who know me know, just don't bring it to me. But if I'm interacting with someone who's brand new in my life, and maybe we've hung out a handful of times, and then they say, oh, that's my B. I'm like, oh, no, I am not. That's who I'm not. We can fix it. Some people, though, in some communities, they're like, oh, no, that's cool. She's just, she's cool people. It's
in our
really
community.
in
our community.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And I can admit that perhaps I would feel differently about the N-word specifically if I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood. I did not. My first time experiencing more Black people than just what was in my household was when I went to an HBCU, which means obviously I was a freshman, so I was 18 years old by the time I was in a community where I was like, oh, everybody looks like me. Okay, cool, So maybe I would feel differently. Maybe if I grew up in the city, and I was in a community of predominantly Black people, and I heard the word, and I heard like the N-word being thrown around so much more, maybe to me it would be more casual, because I would be a different person. My mindset would be different. Again, going back to kind of the premise of this, which is based on your experience. Our experiences shape us. So I don't think that everyone who is defaulting to the N-word or the B-word, they're doing so because they've forgotten about the movement. I think they're doing so because that's what is home to them. That's comfortable to them. They are just defaulting to what they know. I'm not seeing people post like, N's and B's ain't nothing. I'm seeing people being like, oh, this and no better. And they're not saying it to for example, like Will and Jada is like the topic of discussion, right? So when people are talking about Will and Jada and they're labeling them as the N-word or the B-word, I think that some people, they're not thinking twice about what that looks like from the outside, because in their neighborhood, there's nothing wrong with calling somebody the N-word. Like, when's the last time you saw in a Black community a fight break out because somebody was like, hey, what's up, you my N? And a fight broke. That doesn't happen. It's because people are, people are cool with it. Some people are, they don't bat an eye at it. So I feel what you're saying, and I love to hear people be like, oh, my queen, my king, my sister, my brother. Like, I love that. I think that those terms are so much more affectionate. But the reality is also, like, white people don't say, like, that's my bro, that's my sis. No, they're like, that's my friend, that's my beef. It's like we as Black people, sometimes I feel like there is a standard of almost impossibility. It's like we have to hold ourselves to this standard that's 100 times greater, better, harder, faster than everybody else. And I think that that's beautiful, but I think that that also creates a breakdown because then there's this expectation of like, can we just be like human? Can we just be normal? Can we just say like, that's my dog, that's my friend, that's my girl? Why do I have to say, this is my queenly sister who is just powerful? Like, that's my sister, you know what I mean?
Somebody was like making a joke to that, like Zeus was like sliding in the inbox like grand rise and my Black ancestor queen.
Exactly. It's like, do we have to do that? Like, do we have to be so, like, does it have to be that grand as a gesture? I mean, sometimes maybe it's okay, but I think it's also exhausting, and I don't think it's authentic because most people don't speak like that ordinarily, and I get it for people who do, but most people are casual people.
You're right about that. This kind of leads me on to like my next question about this. In your opinion, when it does come to like the matters like family and romance, there's two different sides of this, and I can see the points in both. Some people say like, you love who you love, and that is what it is, and then some people have this mindset like, you have an obligation to the Black community to, as let's say hypothetically me as a Black man, to date, marry, and have children by a Black woman, like, and it's very polarizing, you know what I mean? And coming from my own experience, like I can say this, like I've only ever dated like Black women, like seriously dated, like, like, oh yeah, like that's my girlfriend. And I would say like the furthest I ever strayed from that is like one of my girlfriends is like, she was like just mixed with like a lot of things, but she identified as Black. So in your opinion, like what do you think it is? Like, do you love who you love, or like you have like an obligation like to the community?
I think that there is a fine line. I think that when you say you love who you love, it can't really be love, on first glance. So when people jump to that, like, oh, I can't help who I love. It's like, well, when you met her, you didn't love her. You had to get to know her to love her. So you might have a preference, and I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with the preference. I have a lot of friends who strictly date within their race. I have, one friend off the top of my mind that I can think of who strictly dates outside of her race. I have other friends who have dated within and outside of the race who are just kind of like, I'm open to it. So I think in terms of loving who you love, I think love is so powerful that why not give it a shot with someone who either looks like you or doesn't look like you? I don't think that's an issue, but I do think that when we talk about there being an obligation to allow the Black family to succeed in America, I think that there is an importance in that, but I don't think that it's any one person's responsibility. If I was innately attracted to white men, then that would become my preference. That would just be my thing. And it would be impossible, I think, for somebody to convince me that like, that's wrong and I should date, because love is love. And I do believe that. I don't think, for me, the issue isn't strictly on race or dating outside of your race. It's putting your race down to justify your preference. That's what I have an issue with. Two of my nieces are biracial. I would never disown them. I absolutely love them. And sometimes, honestly, I used to, when I lived in Boston, I used to host every so often, probably like once a month, I would host for my nieces and my little cousins to have just like a slumber party at Auntie's house. And they would all get together. And I remember one time, my heart was shattered because I heard one of my little cousins say to my biracial nieces, oh my gosh, like you guys are so lucky that you're white and Black because your hair is so pretty. Like, it's just so beautiful. And I had to stop that. And like, the rule at my house is like, there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. Just don't cry and don't burn my house down. Those are the only rules I have. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, I have to interject. Like, I have to be the person to say something. And for me, that's more or less the issue. It's when we're shown so much love and preference to someone else that we forget to place love in our own communities, and we forget to tell children who look like us that they are also beautiful. Black babies are beautiful, biracial babies are beautiful, white babies are beautiful. Babies are beautiful, they're also very annoying. So it is what it is, you know? Like, we can tell kids that they're beautiful, but I just think that we need to stop like sexualizing and like making it so pop culture that you have to be biracial in order to be beautiful, because there's beauty in every race. Like there is something beautiful about pretty much everyone walking this earth. Even if it's just a good pair of eyebrows, whatever it is, people are beautiful people. And I think it's okay to spread love. It's just, you don't have to love one thing. You don't have to, you know, hate something to prove your love for another thing. For me, that's where the issue lies.
That's important. And I think, like, piggybacking on kind of what you're saying, like, I think like again, like saying like you have your preference, but one thing that I don't want to see is like, I don't want people's preference to be based off like their experience with like another race. Like I don't want somebody to say like, okay, I'm going to date, you know, like white women because of X, Y, and Z with black women. And
Yes.
And I'm not gonna lie, I do have my own kind of bias against it. Like sometimes.
Okay,
like,
share it with me. Let me hear it.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, so like if I see like a successful black athlete, right, and I see like he has a white woman cuffed on his arm, like, damn brother, like I'm like you fucking up the cause.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't think the same way. Yeah, sometimes I look at that and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, for me it's a love story. Like if I hear like, oh, they've been together for 20 years, I'm like, oh, that's so cute. But if I hear like, oh, he was with somebody for 11 years, got signed, and now then I'm like, oh man, like missed an opportunity. So like I feel you.
Yeah. And like,
but it's because we are so often put to the bottom that it's like, when you see somebody like rising to the top in the sense of love in a public setting, it's like it's a win for the team, because you're like, finally somebody's appreciating that.
Right about that. And I think one thing that we also need to stop doing is like, I think kind of like you're saying, is like stop adding like unneeded pressure like to like your relationship in that sense, because it's just like a relationship is difficult, like no matter who you date, you know what I mean? Like you're going to go through your own personality issues, like aside from, you know, the things that, you know, we struggle with on a day-to-day basis, you know, dealing with the issues of race. So I don't know. I think on both ends of the spectrum, we could have like a little bit more compassion for each other, considering like all the circumstances, considering the fact that we are knowledgeable. Like I don't like to see like I don't like seeing how like some of my brothers treat like, you know, our women, and I don't like seeing like how some of our women treat our brothers. Like, you know, like I think we do need to develop more compassion towards each other in that sense, you know.
Absolutely, I agree with you 110%. I think part of the issue is what you just said, which is not creating a preference based off of an experience. I think that is such a fundamental statement. Like, as I mentioned in the live that you watched, I said, you know, the first question I asked was, who hurt you? And I said that not to be facetious. I stressed that because what I was hoping to do was to pinpoint one person or a group of people and try to figure out like what they did and where the breakdown was, and see like how we can move past it, see how we can heal. And in that live, I spoke about 2 people off the top of my head that I can think of who have hurt me. And I didn't get into it, but for me, the first man that I can think of that hurt me was my dad, who was the black man. And the second person that I can think of is an abusive ex that I dated when I was in college, who was also a black man. I have since strictly dated black men. I can't allow, you know, 2 people's mistakes or, you know, a bad friendship or someone who hurt me to determine who I now choose to be friends with. If you go to one bad church, it doesn't mean you swear off Christianity altogether. You go to one bad amusement park, it doesn't mean you stop going to amusement parks. You get in one bad vehicle, doesn't mean I'm walking for life. So I think that people need to apply that, where it's like, that was one bad experience. So maybe this type of vehicle isn't my type of vehicle. Maybe this type of amusement park isn't for me. And I think if more people applied that to life, I think people would realize that like, it's not a group of people that's the problem. It's that one person, it's that specific person. And if you can pinpoint that, you can figure out what it was that person did to you that hurt you so bad. And then you can seek help specific to where that pain comes from. So if your issues become abandonment, you can see somebody and talk about your abandonment issues. If your issues become because you were abused, you speak to somebody and you get counseling around domestic violence. You have to really be able to pinpoint it, because at the end of the day, the same way that my abusive ex from college hurt me, a white man could do the very same thing. You know, we are human at the end of the day, regardless of the color of our outer, you know, our exterior. We're all capable of hurt. We're all capable of healing. It's a part of being, you know, a human with free will.
Now, let me ask you this, and getting to the point like of like restoring like the Black family and restoring Black relationships. What do you think that we can do more so like on an individual basis and a collective basis? Like how do we tackle, because like it's all going to start like immediately. Like it's going to start with like the relationship that we make immediately, and those translate into like the bigger groups. So what do you think that we can do like immediately to kind of like, you know, start restoring the Black family?
I think the very first thing we can do is educate. For me, education is the root of everything. So if we educate ourselves on where we've come from, we educate ourselves on what we are capable of, what we can do when we learn to properly communicate and effectively communicate, I think that would take us so much further than where we've been able to get. And we've come very far as a people, but we can go a lot further.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I think is just accountability, personal accountability, not racial accountability. I can't take accountability for, you know, a criminal who happens to be Black, just like I can't take personal accountability for the first Black president. I belong to the group of people in which they belong to by being Black, but I'm neither a criminal nor the president. So it's kind of learning to take accountability and saying, like, what can Charlie do in her day to day? If I see a Black person down and out, can I do my best to assist them, provided that that's not putting myself in harm's way? Sure. Am I willing to work toward that? Am I willing to invest in my community by volunteering or donating or what have you? Absolutely. And then I think the final thing is probably doing things that within your community make a difference long term. So whatever that looks like for your community, inviting people from your community to become a part of your family, I think is important. And in general, like whether you're Black or not, just when it comes to romance and relationships, I think that we need to set higher standards for people that we allow into our lives, people that we allow that we have emotional ties to and soul ties and all of those things. That's important. And I think if we consider those three things every time we allow people into our lives, we would find ourselves a lot less hurt. And as a result of being less hurt, we would then cause less hurt, I think.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, you know, we can really like translate into our families, because it's like, you know, we'll see the effects, like you said, if we stay in a abusive relationship, right, and then our children see that, like, we don't know how that translates into their future. And like again, piggybacking on what you said, I think like one of the biggest things like for like developing the Black family is, for one, like to set good examples. Like you need positive examples to witness, to say like, you know, like it's possible, like seeing like healthy Black families. And I always get on this platform and I say it like consistently, Jay Morrison, Greg Parker, I follow them like heavily on Instagram, and I say like, look, like these are successful Black couples, and I'm pretty sure they go through their own shit, you know, behind the scenes.
Sure.
You know, but like just seeing those examples and you know, finding those healthy relationships and staying out of like abusive and you know, toxic relationships. I hate using the word toxic because it was like it was all 2019.
It's like it's such an overused word, but I feel you. But it's an important word because if people use it in the correct context, it's a necessary word. So I feel you.
Yeah. So, but like I said, like, you know, it's setting those good examples, and like again, like developing more compassion for each other, and you know, having honest and open communication about these things. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's once we start doing that, like even for myself, because I got like a lot of shit to work on for myself. I be telling people that you know, we can start like moving things into like a positive direction. And I'll speak for the men on this one, like saying this, like I think that, you know, we need to stop trying to fill like those vacancies, you know, for when we're going through like those tough times and we're going through like emotional stress. Like I can say for like my personal health, like I've actually like taken this time for myself to like really work on myself, not work on myself, but like
Yeah.
like really get my shit together. You know what I mean? Like I think that's really important. You know what I mean? Because when we start doing those things, we end up like hurting people in the long run. And I mean, like if it's something where I'm like working on myself, I'm upfront about that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
upfront about
Really.
that. I said so.
It's easy to say that you're working on yourself during COVID quarantine, but the reality is like, are you working on yourself? And it's good to know the difference. I think that's the other thing. It's knowing the difference.
Yeah.
Knowing the difference between, am I a BSer or like, am I actually doing stuff? Am I just talking or am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's important. I really do. Now, let me ask you this. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. Like, this is not a debate.
So, okay. So, in terms of you, because I respect and I receive what you're saying in terms of when you see like a black man with a black woman, you're like, yeah, like you're celebrating. I celebrate too. I love it. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody in your friendship circle who feels the way that Casey felt, where you're like, I'm turned away from black women and I'm looking in another direction? Do you have a friend who consistently prefers dating outside of their race? And like, what is your, like, do you have a conversation like guy to guy? Are you like, hey bro, like that's not cool? Like, what does that look like for you as a black man?
Personally, me, like, I haven't had that experience.
Okay.
Like I have my friends that's like outside of my race, but yeah, for that part, like I can't even like really speak to that part, because like, again, like the black people that I know, like that are like really like close to me, like they are in relationships with like other black people. If they will date outside of their race, that I don't know. I know for me personally, I probably will not. Like, I probably won't date outside of my race, and not that it's any. Let me specify. I won't date seriously outside of my race. Like,
continue. I'm gonna keep my hand up. You keep going.
I will not date seriously outside of my race. Like, I think it has become a goal of mine to date, marry, and have children with a black woman. Like, I think that is something, and I know this is I don't know if this is healthy, but I take like a real pride in my relationships. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, yes,
I think that's super healthy.
I'm champion for the black culture.
Yes, I think that's beautiful. I mean, I don't see myself, ever not being with a black man personally. But sometimes you just, 10 years ago, I wasn't a vegan. And if you had told me that I'd be a vegan with natural hair, I would have been like, wrong one. And here I am, natural hair vegan. So like, it's, never say never, but I don't foresee that. But I have to ask you this. I'm so glad that you said this, because I have been dying to ask someone this. Okay. So if you don't see yourself seriously dating outside of your race, why would that be I would date, but not seriously? And the reason I ask that is because if you start dating someone, when you first meet them, you have no idea how serious it's going to become. To you, it could be a fling, it could be a summer fling, it could turn into an 8-month romance, it could be an 8-year thing. But if you date someone outside of your race, there is a possibility that you will fall in love with that person. There is a possibility that you will just be like, yo, I got to make an exception to my rule because I love this girl. So you're not the first black man that I've ever heard that. I hear so many black men say that, and I'm just like, that doesn't make sense, because like, you just don't know what the future holds. So like, if you don't want to ever marry outside of your race, then dating outside of your race is not wise, in my opinion. And I also say that because I have a friend who was in a long-term relationship with someone, and he said, I just want to let you know, like, I'm never going to marry you because I need to marry a black woman. And when she told me that, I was like, what? And I was like, okay. I'm like, I was very, very, like, full disclosure, I was very torn, because part of me was like, okay, well, good for him for knowing what he wants. Good for him for like wanting to be a part of, the black family solution, but also like, shame on you. Like, why did you waste my friend's time if you already knew that you were never going to marry her? Because then like, and so for me as a woman, I'm like, that's effed up. Why did you do that? So I'm not saying you've done it, but you said that you wouldn't seriously date. So I want to know, how do you know if it's going to be serious?
I mean, it could be, but let's just say I have a way of like setting my own boundaries.
Oh,
I know
okay.
This might be pretty cold-hearted of me, but like, yeah, like I know I'm all too well at detaching. I'm
okay.
well good in that area. Like,
okay. Will you do me a favor though? Maybe, I mean, you owe me nothing. This is like our first time, like actually having any sort of conversation.
Yeah.
So will you try not to, like, if you are set on marrying a Black woman, can you just do me a favor and just like don't date non-Black women then, so that you don't waste anyone's time? Because it is really painful. Like, it's painful for men and women alike, but especially as we age, because I've seen a lot of women who were like, I want kids, and then they date somebody and they're like, yo, like I spent, you know, X amount of months or years with this person and I could have been starting a family. So like, if you are like on a personal mission to save the Black family, which I respect and I am all for, do me a favor and just date queens and sisters, because just don't waste anybody's time, including your own. Because the time that you're wasting playing around with someone else could be time that you're like taking away from like your final story.
Don't worry, Charlie. Like I'm pretty I'm pretty quick when I know it's clicking and when it's not clicking. Like I'm not gonna waste my time and I'm not gonna waste their time. Like it'll get to a position. It's just like, okay, good. Yeah, this is not gonna last anything more than a month.
Fair. Okay, that's a very good start. I'm very happy to hear that. I appreciate that. I feel like my ladies, I watched a couple of your episodes, and I'm guessing that your audience pretty much is you and I, you know, people that belong in the group that you and I belong to.
I'm starting to diversify a little bit more.
I like that.
I'm starting to do
it. Well, then I was gonna say when my non-Black women see this, they're gonna be like, you know what? I'm so glad that she championed for him to not waste anybody's time. We are not wasting time. I think it was like, there was a hashtag a few years ago. It was like, don't waste my time 2018 maybe, or something, when the new year was starting, and it was like, don't waste my time. And I have that in my head.
But yeah, like I said, I won't do that. And you know, maybe you're right. Like, you know, I'm speaking at this now being 29 years old. You know, maybe I will cross paths with, you know, someone of another race, and maybe that is potential. But what I'm aiming for.
I feel you. And sometimes what we're aiming is we miss, and sometimes we get it. It's just, so yeah, I think that's great. I think it's okay. I think that's beautiful to have a desire and a goal and be aiming toward it.
Exactly. And Charlie, this has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you. I agree. I need to have you visiting. I need to have you visiting me on my show.
Of course, yeah. You know, my schedule is open right now. Like, you give me a date and time. I am setting up like another episode with like an actress. And I wanted to say this. Like, it's funny that like I'm saying we're diversifying. like it's just something like that that you don't hear from us. Like, oh yeah, we have to. Yatta Debates has to diversify this to make sure that we're moving the quota. But this has been like an excellent talk, and I'm so glad that you came onto this platform and spoke on these matters. So, and I hope everyone can like take this, you know, from your perspective and mine, and like absorb these things and take them with them and grow, because that's what we do here on Yatta Debates. We entertain and inform. You know.
Yes, absolutely. That's got to be the goal always.
So once again, I am so glad for having you. Please, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like down below. Please comment and subscribe to the channel. Right, until next time, Yatta Debates.